on that first responder that we lost in the Baker area, right outside of the Baker Walmart. The sheriff of East Baton Rouge Parish is standing by to talk with us. Let's get out there now to him and get an update on that.
Sheriff, what can you tell us?
Well, earlier tonight, about I guess it was about 7:45 is when the incident took place here in the parking lot of Walmart. Basically, what took place, there were two Zachary police officers here to execute a felony warrant. They saw the suspect in the truck and parked here on the parking lot, so they kept him under observation for several minutes. Then they drove in behind him and got out of their vehicle and approached the truck, at which time he saw them. They were clearly marked as police officers, and he fled the scene. One of the officers that was on the passenger side, when the suspect took off, actually pinned the officer next to the shopping cart, and then retriever, I guess you'd call it, and then actually ran over the officer, and he was pronounced dead here at the scene. The first officer, the driver, he actually got back in his unit and was attempting to follow the truck because he had no idea of what had happened. And then when he realized what had happened, he called in, gave us a description of the truck, and actually went back to lend assistance to the other officer. We were able to had a good vehicle description. We got that information a little before 8. I think it was about 10 minutes till 8 when we got that description, and within about 20 minutes actually, a little over 20 minutes, we had two suspects in custody. We found a truck on Comit Drive, where the bridge is on Comit Drive. It actually pulled off to where the old road was there. So we have two suspects in custody at this time. They're both at the VCU. We had multiple witnesses to this incident. They all been questioned and given us statements at the VCU. But the officer is deceased. He was a full-time Zachary fireman, and he was a part-time police officer for the city of Zachary. And we're withholding the names of the suspects, and we're withholding his name until all of his family's been notified.
Sheriff, obviously this is somebody who had a lot of connections to a lot of law enforcement in this area. I mean, how's everybody doing tonight? Well,
everybody's taking it rough, as you can understand. You know, I unfortunately have been through this more than once. It's not an easy thing to go through, and of course Chief McDavid and Zachary's fire chief both were here, and it's a hard thing for them to go with. I'm sure you saw them all huddled up earlier, and the chaplain was praying for them. But you know, only thing I could tell them is I hate to say this from my own personal experience, but it's a very hard thing to go through. But the best thing they can do is just be supportive of each other and not ask why. Just be supportive of not only each other, but the families that are involved here as well. Also, it has a connection with us because one of our secretaries at the office, this officer was her brother.
Sheriff, early reports indicated that this might have been, that the officers might have been undercover at the time. Was that the case, or is that something you can tell us?
They were undercover. They had been looking for this suspect all day, and they were working along with state police in trying to apprehend this suspect all day. Tomorrow we'll have a whole lot more once we get this thing sorted out. You know, but you saw him leave here earlier, escorting his body to the coroner's office, and I'm sure once the autopsy's done, we don't have any reason to believe there's any shots fired or anything like that. We think that from the injuries he received, he just was run over by the truck. We've looked at film from the cameras here at Walmart, and it all suggests that you couldn't see him, but you could see the truck move up, so we know that he had run over him. And like I say, died on the scene. It's just a tragic thing. It's another tragic loss, and you know, we mourn for the loss of a fellow law enforcement officer, but a true public servant. I mean, he was a full-time fireman and worked with the Zachary Fire Department and also worked with the Zachary Police Department. So it's tragic when you lose anybody, but certainly somebody young like that is hard to deal with.
Can you tell us anything about the nature of the warrant that they were serving? You said it was a felony warrant.
It's a felony warrant, and I know it was drug-related.
All right. Sheriff, thank you very much for your time. We know it's a hard night for you.
Thank you.
All right.
Casey will give y'all more in the morning.
Well, okay. Liz, this is
Thank
Greg.
you,
Thank you for that information that we got there. Obviously, a very sad night for a lot of the folks out there. As you heard the sheriff saying that we lost tonight. A Zachary firefighter who was working as a part-time police officer for the Zachary Police Department in conjunction, according to the sheriff, with state police in trying to serve a warrant related to drugs and trying to apprehend a suspect. If you heard from the sheriff there, it sounded as if the officer who lost his life tonight was approaching the suspect who was in a truck, and that suspect backed over him and caught him in with one of those cart returns that you see where you put your cart in. Apparently he was somehow connected with that. We have Liz Val now standing by at the scene, and Liz, they were able to escort the officer's body away. I'm sure that was a moving situation there, and I guess from there we'll get some more information.
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. And it really was, as I mentioned several times tonight, that there were probably representatives from every law enforcement agency here in the parish, and everyone who was here lined the parking lot here as they escorted this law enforcement official out. And that certainly is, you know, the word that comes to my mind as you watch it, it's a sacred thing for the law enforcement community here. And so certainly leaving this, escorting him out with a lot of honor. And this is somebody who, as you mentioned, the sheriff there is going to be missed by a lot of people. As we mentioned earlier, he does have connections. He was a full-time firefighter. He worked part-time with the Zachary Police Department and also had a connection with the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office, that apparently a member of his family worked for the Sheriff's Office. So someone who's well-known, and as the sheriff said there, someone who is young, certainly a tragic loss. And from listening to the sheriff and how that this played out, as you mentioned there, they were serving a felony, what appears to be a felony drug warrant, when the suspect then ran over this officer. So tragic is one word, horrific is certainly another one here. But the sheriff said that there should be more information released tomorrow. As we learn more, of course, we'll continue to cover this story very closely, and we'll get you those details as soon as we learn more.
All right, Liz Val live for us tonight in Baker outside of the Walmart. Thank you very much. I'm not going to keep you very much longer, but I did want to update you on just what we plan to do. Our evening crew will pretty much become our morning crew, as our folks will work to get you the very latest on this. You can see those updates starting at 4:30 in the morning with Matt Williams. Matt Williams and Lauren Westbrook then will take over from 5 to 7, and we'll have crews following this for you and give you all the updates so we can get to the bottom of what has turned out to be a very tragic scene in Baker, losing a full-time firefighter who was working part-time with the Zachary Police Department, serving a warrant, and was killed. The 2 suspects have been arrested, and we'll get more on that. We'll also, in the meantime, update our 9 News app. So if this is a story that's important or near and dear to you, you can look for those updates coming up throughout the morning. I'm Greg Merriweather. We hope you have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you back here very shortly.